Okay, so the next one we're going to be taking a look at has a very ridiculous title, and that happens to be Bobobo-bo-bobo. And yes, I am not fucking kidding, that is actually the name of it. Although I just call it Bobobo for short, just because it's just so much easier. But one thing I will have to say before I start talking about this one is that, if you guys remember from last year, I did a review on the anime My Bride is a Mermaid. Well, if you guys remember that one, all I had to say about that one is that it was just ridiculous as fuck. But it was ironically pretty entertaining just because it was just so stupid to be true. And I'll say it right here is that this anime makes My Bride's a Mermaid look fucking normal. So for this review, we're going to be going 11 on the ridiculous scale. Alright, so let's finally begin. So it begins in the year 3000X. And the world is being ruled under Tusuru Tusalina IV, who was a real history person, but in this show they renamed him to be Bald the Fourth. And after hearing that, that's when you realize that you cannot take this show seriously. And what he does to people is that he uses his hair hunt troops and they capture random people and then he shaves their head bald and then their village just goes into ruin for some whatever reason. But there is one rebel out there who wants to stop all this and his name happens to be Bobobo, whose name is not only ridiculous, but even himself looks very ridiculous. So his special power is using his hair to attack the Bald clan, and his style happens to be called Fist of the Nose Hair. Yeah, the show is definitely inspired by Fist of the North Star, not just with that, but even with his character design too. I mean, he's just all big and bulky, and of course even the setting as well, because it is kind of post-apocalyptic. So it's pretty much just about him kicking a bunch of people's asses that happen to be bald with his hair powers. But there are other characters that do travel along with him, like someone named Beauty. She is a teenage girl that got rescued by Bobobo, and she's one of the few people in this show that is actually not on drugs. And then there's Don Patch, who is pretty much a sun, or he could just be a fireball, but then again the sun is pretty much just a giant ass fireball anyway. And then there's Gasser, who is pretty much a samurai, but he fucking farts all the time. And then finally for the main cast, there is someone named Jilly Jiggler. And he looks exactly like Gumby, but only that he's more thicker and he's blue. And he also happens to use an attack called Fist of the Wobble Wobble. I'm just surprised that I'm actually saying this shit with a straight face. Well, anyways, there is like one other character that you think is going to be pretty important, but he actually really isn't, and that happens to be Pickles, who is literally a sliced pickle with arms and legs. So that makes up the Bobobo team, who has to try and stop Bald the Fourth, and well, yeah, this show is definitely fucking stupid. So it's a rather simple plot, but it's more of a parody than anything, and boy, let me tell you, this show is just fucking hilarious. So this show does have all kinds of comedy, like it has a lot of stupid puns, it has a lot of breaking the fourth wall, and even of course it does make fun of some pulp culture references, like I already said, Fist of North Star being one of them, and plenty of others, but yeah, like I already said, this show is just so fucked up that I just can't say it into words. If there's any word I can think of that would suit this show, or at least it would kinda suit it, even then I don't even know if it would even be accurate, but that would have to be, this show is just fuckular. But I don't mean that in a bad way, but if I had to compare this show to like any other thing out there is that it's kinda like the ridiculousness of the 1960s Batman with Adam West. You know how it is, I mean that show is just over the top and is just really fucking ridiculous as hell. Well, this is pretty much exactly like that times 10. But it's just so weird. I mean, for one thing is that this show hardly makes any sense whatsoever, but it's still entertaining nonetheless though. Mainly because I do like the jokes that are in here, and at least this show never went boring. I mean, just think about it, like, it's a show about a big giant muscle guy who attacks people with his nose hairs, and they all happen to be bald people that are trying to make everyone in the world bald for no reason whatsoever. So with that being said, yes, the story is like overly ridiculous, like you wouldn't believe it, but it never goes dull, and at least it is pretty creative. I mean, who the hell else would have came up with this shit? I mean, I guess the only other thing I can think of is just some random druggie who is obsessed with LSD could probably come up with something like this. So anyways, let's move on, and let's talk about the animation, and well, yeah, it actually does look pretty good, and then of course, all the visual effects are fucking hilarious looking. And the character designs are pretty good for what they are. I mean, yeah, it's definitely over the top, just like this show. So not a whole lot of complaints I can make about the animation, but yeah, it's actually pretty good. Now as for the music, now to me, I don't think it's very memorable, but it at least does suit the show very well because it just sounds very derpy. But nothing that I would make a really big deal about it, so yeah, there's not a lot I can say about the music, but I guess it could have been a little bit better, but I'm not gonna make a big fuss over it. As for the openings, well, there's actually two openings, and the first one is actually kinda good. Now, it's not amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but it actually is pretty catchy. So I actually really like that. As for the second opening, well, I don't really care for it as much, but it definitely does suit the show more, considering that it just sounds, you know, really ridiculous and shit. So I have to say the openings are actually not too bad. Now as for the voice acting, well, for this kind of show, you probably wouldn't believe it, but the show actually has a very good cast. So Bobobo is being played by Richard Epcar, who happens to be one of my favorite voice actors, and man, let me tell ya, he does definitely do a good job like he normally does. But hearing him saying the shit that Bobobo says is just too fucking funny, so that's really good. And then Beauty is being played by Felice Sampler. Her voice actually isn't too bad. I mean, it does suit her role very well. But I definitely don't think it's as ridiculous enough for this kind of show. But because she is the only sane character in here, then yeah, I guess it does suit, so yeah, it's actually not too bad. And yeah, Don Patch is being played by Kirk Thornton, yeah, and I don't know why I'm saying yeah so many times, but anyways. He also does a really good job here, and as again, Kirk Thornton is actually a big favorite of mine as well. So there's not much to say about that, but yeah, definitely a pretty good one. And then Gasser is being played by Brad McDonald, and well, it's not a bad voice, but it's definitely one of the weaker ones in this show. But it isn't anywhere near awful though, it's just not as crazy as I would have suspected it to be. And then Jilly Jiggler is being played by Jameson Pierce, and as again, he's another big favorite of mine, and he actually does a really good job here. But let me tell you though, hearing Jameson Pierce and Kirk Thornton doing very ridiculous roles is just so hilarious that I couldn't even believe it was actually them playing in those roles. Now there are other good voice actors here as well, like Paul St. Peter, Kate Higgins, Michael Sorch, David Lodge, Dan Warren, Leon O'Brien, and even Johnny Young Bosch. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of great cast here, and of course, a lot of them do a very good job, especially for, you know, acting all crazy and shit. But now, just out of curiosity, if anyone who's watching this and goes to convention and actually meets, like, some of the voice actors in these shows, well, if you ever meet, like, let's just say Richard Epcar, someone really needs to ask him about his experience when he did the voice for this show, or at least how fun it was to do, because this show must have been pretty damn fun to voice act. I mean, who wouldn't just want to yell out the words, Super! Fist of Nose Hairs! So anyways, let's move on to the final part, and this happens to be the score. And well, if I were to rate this one, I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10. Yeah, I'd be lying if I told you I didn't somewhat enjoy this one. It really is one of those animes that's just so stupid that it's actually very entertaining and very hilarious. Now obviously, this is not going to be for everyone because I'm sure there are some people that didn't like this one because, you know, they wanted something more serious, and you know, that's totally fine. Or maybe there are some people out there that just didn't find it funny because it was just so stupid that they just didn't find it funny at all, and you know, that's totally fine, but honestly, I fucking laughed my ass off at this one. And I know some people might be thinking I'm a little bit generous on this one, but the thing is though, is that at least what they were trying to do, which was to be a parody and to be like as ridiculous as possible, it actually did that pretty well. So I'm giving it a 7 because it was not only very entertaining because of how stupid and funny it was, but it was also very creative, so I have to give them some credit there. And even though I did not explain every single little thing about the show, all you can just imagine is that how crazy it really is, because seriously, you should really watch it if you want to see something that's just so stupid to be true. So I can easily tell you that this show definitely blows My Bride's a Mermaid out of the water, literally. Yeah, that was an unsuspected pun that I'm surprised hasn't even been in the show yet. Well, anyways, if you like the sort of ridiculous balls to the wall, over the top, campy ridiculousness, then yeah, this is definitely for you. So if there's any last words I have to say about this one is that this is definitely one of the most bizarre shows I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's so bizarre that I actually had to use the word fuckular to summarize it. But even that is not enough to summarize this show, because that is how crazy this one is.